Alright everybody, this is the second part to our Berkeley Times tutorials. Last section we learned to find our articles and we made sure to read them so that we understood the content and what we were designing for, including the audience it's intended for. Then we looked for an example layout that we could use as inspiration, and we picked one that fit our article's content. And then we decided on a color palette that also fit our article's content and that wasn't over 5 different colors. Now we need to begin our layout in InDesign. So when you do set up InDesign, you have to make sure that if you're doing one-page spread, which most of us are the first quarter, you can set it up as one page. If you're doing a 2-page spread, we're setting it up as 3 because remember that first page kind of sits alone by itself. The most common and most fatal mistake is not selecting A4 size paper and instead leaving it as a default, which is letter. That is for printing in the US, so we need to make sure that we select A4 paper. We won't use hyphenations in our text. We'll use left justification, and we need to make sure that we leave space for a teacher tag. That is just leaving a little bit of a square space to put in a picture of the person who wrote the article, and that is usually a teacher. So let's start setting up our InDesign page. So you'll go to your Windows and type in InDesign, CS6, and you can open that right up. Once you open InDesign up, it's going to ask you if you would like to create a new one or open a recent. We're creating a new document. Here is where the settings are. Our intent, that means our intention, what do we plan to do? We're going to leave it on print. We're not doing web. If we change it to web, that would change our color scheme to RGB, and we want to stay into CMYK, which is what printers use. We're only going to do one page, and the size, the really important one, is A4. Do not forget that. Everything else we can leave by default, let it be how it is, and just click OK. Now this is going to give me one page to work with. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see my workspace. Alright, and zoom in. Remember, Control minus zooms out, Control plus zooms in. Now I can start designing. To pan across the page, I can hold down the space bar and move my page around. But before I start putting boxes and text on, I want my inspiration over here and I want my color palette over here. So I'm going to go back to where I found my inspiration, which was on Pinterest. And I can click on this and go to the website that it is available on. And I can save this image. Let's see what happens if I copy it. I'm not sure if that will work, but that didn't really work for us. So a little safer bet is to save that image somewhere on your computer. I'm just going to save it on the desktop, even though that's not the most organized way. And we can see that this is very long. So I don't want to look at all of that, so I'm going to zoom into the one that I like. And the layout that I liked, that I think will work, because remember, if I'm doing pre-K and K1, I have 2 full articles to do. I think I'm going to choose this as my inspiration. So I'm just going to zoom in. And then I'm going to use my snipping tool again to capture the part I liked. And I'm just taking half because remember, my page is only going to be an A4 page. Now let's try to copy that and paste it here. So here's my inspiration. And I'm going to label that layout inspiration. And I want to select all that text and make it bigger. So Control A selects all. That was Control A. And making it bigger, the shortcut, I could go right up here and say 111 point bigger, or I could just do Control Shift and the greater sign and make it bigger. That's great to use when you're making your titles. So go back to my cursor. So I have my layout inspiration over here, and I need my color palette. So I decided just to use 3 colors, this red, this bright blue, and this kind of greenish yellow color, and I need to get them on into InDesign. So those color palettes were little squares. So I'm going to make a square over here. I selected my rectangle tool. Then I clicked and I hold down Shift to make it a perfect square. Now I'm going to go back to my selection tool or click V to get it, and I'm going to duplicate this. Once it's selected, I can click Alt and just make another one right next to it. This is where I'm going to fill these in with the colors that I would like to use. So spacebar and pan over. I'm going to go ahead and do Control plus to zoom in. And let's get my first color. So 0, 100, 91, 0. So right now I have nothing filled in for the fill. If I double click on it, I can type the CMYK manually. So one more time to look. 0, 100, 91, 0, which is my CMYK code for this color red. So 0, 100, 91, 0. This is the color red. So I want to add that CMYK swatch. When I click Add CMYK swatch, it fills in the box I selected, and it adds it to my color palette. So here's a regular red, but you can see that the CMYK code is not the same as this one. This is customized. I'm going to click on my second box, go back to Adobe Color. This CMYK code is 13400. So I selected the box, go back to my fill option, double click it. Of course I forgot it. 134. Alright. 100, tab, 3400. There's that color. I'm going to add the CMYK swatch. And the reason I add the swatch is so that when I design on this page, I can easily find that color again. And my last color, since I'm only doing 3 colors in my palette, 0s, 3, 90, 20. Let's see. Test for Miss Ashley if I can remember all those numbers. Fill it in. Oh boy. 0, 3, 90, 20. Good. Now it's probably a good idea that you write those numbers down. Or make sure that they're here. And this is my color palette. So I'm going to type color palette over here. Again, Control A selects all. Control Shift greater than is going to make it bigger for me. Oh, and my box isn't big enough. Now I couldn't use the shortcut, which is V, to go back to my selection tool because I'm already in this text. So here I go back to the selection tool, V. Now I'm going to zoom up with Control minus, and I can see my layout is set up and ready for me to go. I have my layout inspiration, and I have my color palette ready. So what's next? Let's check back on our website. We're going to begin our layout design. We've done the one page, we've selected A4, so now I'll make one more video after this one where I'm actually working through it, and I will show you hyphenation and justification and the teacher tag. So for now, that's it.